It's magic hour. It's my favorite time of day. Early. It's getting cold where I live. Can any of you guess where that is? Let me know in the comments and I will see you inside.
Please like and subscribe.
Hey, welcome back, guys. This is part 2 of Inside the Rock Mix. Today we're going to be dealing with bass. If you haven't watched part 1, which was all about drums, I suggest going and watching that first because it all incorporates together. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I do things in my own way here. I'm not telling you that this is the only way to do things. There's a million ways to do things, and I go overboard on stuff all the time. I like to experiment. I like to have fun, and when I land on something I like, I just stay there. I move on, and I don't overanalyze it. So some of y'all might think I'm crazy. There's some overkill going on, absolutely. But this is my way of doing things, and you should find your own way of doing things. That's half the fun of this shit. So, this is not a beginner video. This is an intermediate video. I expect you guys to probably know a thing or two about mixing if you're going to get anything from this video. If you don't, watch it anyway. Maybe you'll pick up some stuff, but some stuff might go over your head if you're completely green. So let's get into this mix. So we have 5 tracks here of bass. Now these are all the same bass performance. So I've duplicated the same track out 5 times and I'm treating it differently on each track. So the first track here, let's just solo this and have a listen. I've got this BOD plugin on here by TSE Audio. I really love that one. It's subtle, but it's also not subtle. Second track. This is an Ampeg emulation by Plugin Alliance. That's giving me some of that really low end thickness that I like. Third track, I have the Bass Knob by Bogren Digital. Love this thing. It's a little more grit and grime in there. This track here that I call Pointy is a weird sort of thing that I picked up from Chris Collier, who's a brilliant mixer. So it's the BOD plugin again, but what he does and what I now do is around 1.5K on 2 bands, because we want so much boost to this, we really push 1.5K. Let's see, we've got 25 dB or so being pushed there, and that gives us this really gross sound when it's on its own. But that's giving you a lot of the attack and the pick noise, and when it's mixed in right, I find it adds a real nice thing. And then I've got this Clank plugin on the 5th track by Audio Assault, and this is just more distortion, grit, drive. And that's also contributing some low end. Now, if we listen to this bass without any of the plugins on it, it sounds like this. Kind of boring. It's just a straight up Fender bass into an interface. So now together we have this. And that's all well and good. It sounds good. However, something happens here. Since we're adding plugins that are doing different things on different tracks, we're going to get our phase alignment is going to become sort of mismatched. And so what I like to do is I render each of these tracks out so the plugin is baked into the audio, and then I phase align them. I'll show you. So here's our rendered tracks, and they sound like this. Sounds pretty good, and you'll notice I've already set the levels on the faders to how I like it. I'm not going to get into balancing that stuff. The video would be too long. You balance it as you see fit if you decide to go and explore some of these ideas yourself. So let's phase adjust this stuff, because inevitably when you apply plugins to a track that is the same track, you're going to get some phase differences. So in Reaper, we have this module. It's a phase align module. It's great if your DAW doesn't have something like this. There are plugins. There's some pretty inexpensive ones, probably some free ones that do a similar thing. So you're not out of options. So we adjust each item separately, apply. So this both adjusts time and phase inversion to a reference track. So I've chosen my first track as the reference track, and it then takes the other four and aligns them to that track. So what do we have now? You can hear it's a lot fuller. There's a lot more low end. Just let me undo that and play. That's before phase adjustment. And this is after phase adjustment. So there it is. I liked what that did, but there's going to be times when you adjust the phase on things and you don't like it better. Even though it's more in phase, you don't like the sound as much. So go back or use the phase button on your channel on your DAW. Most of them have it. It flips the phase 180 degrees. That's one option. You can, like I showed you in the drum video, you can get in there and manually align things by hand. Basically, when you arrive at a sound you like, stay there and move on. Let's get into the mix. Okay, we're into our mix session here now. Let's just have a listen real quick for a minute. I'm going to put those guitars in. There's our bass. I love how gritty and grimy it is. It works well with those guitars. So we have our bass guitars. Here they are. So those I imported from our session that I just showed you into this mix. And these are going to a bass bus. And I'll show you what's going on there. So first things first, on this last bass fuzz track, this one here, I decided to roll off a little bit of the low end because there's just too much. After I phase aligned them, those tracks became very thick on the bottom. And as you'll see in a moment, there's a nice bit of sculpting going on the EQs. So first EQ I have is this Pultec. And I did the old Pultec trick. And if you guys don't know what that is, you can look it up, look more into it. Basically, on this particular EQ, if you boost and cut in the same frequency, it gives you some sort of, it's just a nice EQ curve. It sounds really pleasing. So I did that there. The second EQ is not an EQ at all. It's a compressor. So I'm just knocking a little bit off with this LA2A by Universal Audio. This Pultec is also by Universal Audio, by the way. And then the next EQ, yes, here's where all the carving is. I've taken out a lot of low mids. So let's see. 70, 75 hertz has a little dip. 127 has a dip. 207 hertz has a dip. 315 has a dip. And then up here at around 700 has a dip. I said this in the previous video. I don't go for these specific numbers. I just grab the little handles and move them around until it sounds good, basically. You know, your ear will tell you, oh, this is too bass heavy. Let's start digging around for frequencies. And then when you start to put the drums and the guitars around it, you might have to sculpt out some more things. So don't pay attention too much to the exact numbers. It's not what it's about. Okay, our next EQ in line is actually a sidechaining EQ. So what I've got going on here is when the kick drum hits, I'm dipping out, let's see, I'm dipping out 137 hertz pretty substantially. I'll show you. So when the bass is on its own, you can kind of hear that it's being dipped out when the kick hits, but it doesn't matter because what we're essentially trying to do here, it's called sidechaining. So we are making space for our kick drum in a physical sense. So when the kick drum shows up, we actually move those frequencies out of the way in the bass track. It's sort of a new thing. I also got this from Chris Collier. I know a lot of electronic musicians use this. I've never tried it in rock until I was talking to him and he told me about it, and I love it. It saves you a bit of hassle. It sort of has its own sound. You still have to EQ your bass and kick to be sort of separate, but this just sort of puts the kick a little out front. And it's easy to do. There's different ways to do it in different DAWs and different plugins. So then we have another EQ where I'm taking out a little bit more 266 and I am doing a high pass at 120 by the looks of it. Now, why would I do this? Here's why. I have another set of tracks going that I call super low bass or sub bass or whatever. So one of them is a sine wave. I literally played the bass line on a keyboard using just a simple sine wave. So this is very, very low frequency stuff. This is one of our bass tracks and it's going through this bass enhancer. There's a million of these things out there that enhance your sub. So what's happening here is I carved some of the lows out of the actual bass guitar to make room for this super low stuff. And the reason is sometimes I like the bass to actually touch bottom, right? We generally tend to roll off some subs because, you know, speaker systems can't handle them. It cleans things up. Plugins don't like being hit with super low stuff. It freaks them out. There's several reasons. But I like to sneak a little bit of it in under the mix. And I actually sneak it in under the actual mix. So this right here is my master channel in Reaper. But you can tell there's no plugins happening here. The reason is I make another track that's my master, that's going to have all my master bus channel track plugins on there. I showed you guys this a little bit last time. And so that frees up my actual master bus. So these super low bass tracks, I run through the actual master bus. So they're not getting affected by the plugins that are on my master. To be more clear, I've created a secondary master bus inside of the Reaper mixer that I route everything to except the super low bass. Everything but the super low bass gets processed there and then sent out to the actual master bus. The super low bass bypasses this secondary master bus and goes straight out the actual master bus unaffected. And the reason for this is these plugins tend to not allow that bass to sit right on the floor. There's a little bit of a roll off at the bottom. I want this super low bass to come through, sort of sneak in under that radar. And I just feather it in, guys. It's just there ever so subtly. But it makes a big difference. If you're listening in your car or on a system that can, play back some sub, you're going to hear it. And so we have to make room in our bass guitar track for it. That's why I have this high pass here. All right, so the next part is our drum and bass bus. Do you remember this from last time? So we have this True Iron plugin on here by Kazrog. We have an EQ that isn't doing anything. I just have these EQs by default on my channels, so I don't always use them. They're not imparting a sound or anything. They're often there if I haven't gotten rid of them and I'm not using them. And then we have our Neve 33609 compressor plugin by Universal Audio. And that is compressing the drums and bass together. So let me show you what that does. This is bypassed. And this is engaged. Bypassed. Engaged. To my ear, it glues the bass and the drums together. It's given us a little bit of a volume boost for sure. That's fine. It just does something musical to me. It's subtle, but I really like how the bass and drums move together as though they're one thing. So I pretty much always do this. If it's a really light song I'm mixing, I might not. But anything with density and it, a lot of guitars, a lot of stuff going on, I'm going to do this trick. I really like it. And as I said last time, our True Iron plugin, this thing's diverse. You can make it sound gritty and distorted. I kind of use it as a fine sandpaper. It just smooths off some of the transients. I really enjoy it. And I know I say I love all these plugins that I am showing you. I'm not endorsed by anybody, but the ones I use, I really like. So let's just have a quick listen. I'll put the guitars in, we'll have a listen, and that's going to sort of wrap up this video, guys. I'll come back in not too long, and we'll do guitars, and then we'll do synth and vocals, or maybe I'll do synths with guitars. We'll see. There's not a lot of synth happening here. Please like and subscribe, leave comments, tell me if you like this stuff, tell me if you don't, make suggestions. I'm here, I'm open, I love interacting.